Where do you put Carey Price in terms of, which I mean is probably one of the biggest difference makers, is when you say Carey Price, he's one of the top goalies in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the best goalie in this division?
Ooh, you're going to make me have to take off my my fan hat and be objective in here, but and it sucks because Carey Price is right around the same age I am. So to say that he's lost a step means that I'm not quite in my prime anymore, which kind of you have to say through gritted teeth a little bit. But no, I mean, if Jacob Markstrom can stay healthy, and that's the biggest question mark for the Calgary Flames to me. You paid all this money for him, but he's one of those guys that just seems to get hurt every single year. Same as Tanev, same as a lot of the pieces that the Calgary Canucks peeled off of Vancouver this summer. But I'd say at Markstrom, man, he played on his head last season. He got to the Canucks to where they were and to that playoff spot. But again, if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be a big difference maker for the Calgary Flames. Now, is Carey Price still one of the best goaltenders in the world? Yes, I believe so. I think he's still top 3, top 5. But just what have you done for me lately? That's kind of where I slide in. I think Thatcher Demko is going to have a good opportunity to get a bunch of looks here in Vancouver this year. I mean, he's still living rent-free in the head of Pete DeBoer and the Vegas Golden Knights right now. He's still haunting those guys, but it's going to be interesting. There's so many good quality goaltenders in this division that it's really hard to, I think whoever gets hot basically is going to get played as well, right? Like, I think that's going to be the big thing in Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal even. I mean, if Carey loses a step and he's getting sniped on, they're going to put Jake Allen in there. They're spending, around $11 million, I believe, in net this season. Like, it's for a reason. They're hoping to really shut it down, and especially in a sprint, not a full season, it's going to make a big difference. They're going to play the hot hand. You're going to be surprised with who plays and who sits sometimes.
I was just going to say the only goaltending situation that is a complete and utter disaster is Edmonton. Like, everybody else has like, a pretty reasonably good, like, you got Markstrom, you got Hellebuck, maybe Murray, but it depends. I mean, Shane from the Sens Hour podcast actually thinks the Senators are going to compete for a playoff spot, but Derek did not. So a little bit deep.
Stay on reach deep. Yeah, that's a bit of a reach.
But Toronto with Freddie Anderson, I mean, I think everybody has really good goaltending except Edmonton.
Yeah, because we talked all this, and we haven't even talked about Connor Hellebuck and how well he stepped in the last couple of years, and but he's gonna have to stand on his head because Winnipeg doesn't have the defense. Calgary's got, I think they've got the makings of a decent defense, so it might help Markstrom out. You've got Toronto with the makings of a decent defense if they can learn how to play defense as a team so that they aren't getting shelled, and Freddie Anderson isn't getting shelled every night. So yeah, I think it is a bit of more of a toss-up than you would think, but I still think Carey Price is probably top 2, and definitely top 3, and I think you can still make an argument for top 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that them, like you said, every goaltender that you just mentioned, though, they're going to have to play really well with the defense that they have in front of them.
Yep.
And I think that that's going to make a big difference. They might have spectacular numbers, but there's not enough games in the season for a team like Ottawa, Winnipeg, Edmonton to steal that many games off the back of a performance of a goaltender, where other teams that 2 points every now and then, maybe once every couple of weeks, a goalie gets you a game. That might be the difference maker in this short season.
And the other thing that I do think is going to happen, and I think this will be an early storyline, is I think the offense is going to be ahead of the defense. I think it's going to take a while for some of the goaltenders to get their footing going. I think we're going to see some high scoring games early is kind of my thought.
No preseason games, especially.
Yeah. So
not even goaltenders. It's the getting used to the systems and getting back into the swing of playing team defense. It takes a little bit.
Yeah. So navigating through that, I think, will be interesting. Is Carey Price the starting goaltender if the NHL is in the Olympics, or is it now Carter Hart's net?
Oh wow! Oh boy! Oh boy!
Oh,
Again, I think it's got to be a 1-2 punch. I think they're just going to play the hot hand, right? If you had to put a gun against my head and pick one or the other, I'd probably give it to Carey just based on his resume and what he can do, what he's proven to do across his career. But I mean, Carter Hart's, he's up there too. Like he's showing well. I'm just hoping he's not kind of I don't want to call Matt Murray a flash in the pan, but you know what I mean? Like a goaltender that has a stellar year or two and then you see a decline, almost like a Braden Holtby, which is another big question mark, right?
The whole thing with that though is I think it's just the way that the game and the league develops too, and how players and coaches start exploiting how the goaltenders play. And that's what happened with Matt Murray is like he was really good, and then they started to play. The way players attacked was attacking his weakness, and he hasn't been able to fix that yet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's almost like a young quarterback in the NFL, right? Comes into the league like a Lamar Jackson and just lights it up and nobody can figure him out and he scrambles and you're like, holy, this kid's unreal. But as defenses get a little more video footage on him and they can kind of pick out his flaws a little more, you see him kind of put the cape away more like Cam Newton as well. Cam Newton was unreal, an MVP, took his team to the Super Bowl. Didn't win it, but within a year or two, teams had a lot of footage. And I think it's the same thing when you're talking about NHL goaltenders. Teams trying to figure out what are their tendencies, how do they get scored on, and how do we do more of that? More so than ever before because they've had so much time off, right? So a lot of those video coaches have nothing better to do because they're not scouting right now. A lot of people are just studying film right now. A lot of scouts throughout the NHL. Besides the World Junior Tournament, there really hasn't been a lot going on unless you're talking about overseas hockey, and that's eating up the video footage in the video room. It's definitely going to pay dividends, which, tip of the hat to Ian Clark, because that's something that, from all accounts that I've heard, it's something that he stresses too, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with Carey Price, they've got and Jake Allen, they've got the luxury of having the best defense core in front of them in this division. Mm-hmm. With Weber and Petrie and Sherratt, where's my trident? And then with the addition of Joel Edmondson, you've got Alexander Romanov coming in. You've got and Kulak and Mete, and then as you said, Juleson, and they still have a few other like good young defensemen that can come up too. Yeah. Josh Brook, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him getting some games this year, depending on how things go. And Cale Fleury as well. So I really like where the Habs are at defense on the blue line. They've got a good mix of vets and young players. And then it just, for me to transition, the biggest question mark for me is if they can get the offense, because they don't have that bona fide, like superstar level or like bona fide superstar level forward that teams have to key on. But they've got, as we talked about a little bit earlier, they've got depth, and if they can score by committee, watch out.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be a tough team this season to play against. 4 lines rolling, and like you said, they're one of the deepest defenses, I think, in the league right now, too, especially in the Canadian division. I mean, Weber's Weber. Even though, Montreal has a lot of salary tied up with him and Carey Price until 2025, I believe, which, kind of makes you cringe a little bit. But now,
I'm warning you, I have a cringeworthy question coming up.
Okay. But Joel Edmondson is a nice little pickup, as you mentioned before. I actually played slow pitch baseball with his brother in Kamloops. I know him very well, and And yeah, he was telling me how they get bumped around a little bit and what the experience was like. And it was kind of cool. I was there the day after he signed his bridge deal with St. Louis, and Joel's a good player. He's a good, strong defenseman. Obviously, he's a cup winner with St. Louis, brings a lot of experience and a lot of playoff experience to this young team as well. I think Mete is going to be the big question mark and the big what if on the Canadiens back end, though, because for me, I mean, if you're a Vancouver fan, I liken Mete to an Olli Juolevi. Where he's a young guy, you want to try and give him games, but at the same time, like, hey, we need him this season, right? And having AHL teams in the United States, and like if you're Pittsburgh, you have Wilkes-Barre Scranton, right there. So you don't have to quarantine for 14 days. Who cares on your taxi squad? You can call the guy over tomorrow night. It doesn't work that way in the Canadian division, right? So you really kind of have to pick and choose who you're going to bring on your taxi squad. But at the same time, a player like Mete, a player like Juolevi, you want to get him a lot of games and get him that experience. It's not really doing him much good practicing every day being on the taxi squad.
The thing with Mete, though, and the Habs is they do have their AHL in right there. They're playing. I think I saw that they're going to be playing right out of Montreal this year,
Okay.
and because it's the Laval Rocket, right? So, so they're one of the Eastern teams seem to be okay. Winnipeg East are okay because I think they all have AHL teams up north of the border. It's all us West teams that have to worry about that part.
Yeah.
We'll ask you first about Weber. I mean, yes, lots of money tied in, but where is he in terms of the Canadian division defenseman? Where would you rank him? Because we did a top 5, and of course, we'll ask you an important question in a moment to teaser. But where is Shea Weber in your top 5?
Jeez, give me a little less warning on this one. You're putting my feet to the fire here. Oh boy. I mean, yeah, I think I have Weber at number 5. I think he's lost a step. His foot speed obviously isn't as quick as it once was. Not that he was ever the fastest guy. But he's still a stalwart on the back end there. He's still got the 100-mile-an-hour plus slap shot. He's still sound defensively. He can still make that good first stretch pass. He makes, taking the puck away from people in his own zone look effortless, and he still does that. Like, he still, his compete factor is right there. But yeah, I think he slides into number 4, number 5 on my top 5 for sure.
That's where I had him. I think that's where most of us had him as well.
Yeah, around there. I'm a big fan of Jeff Petrie. I think he's the best defenseman on the Canadiens. I love the way, I love his skating. I love his puck handling. I think, to me, he's in my opinion the number 1 defenseman in Montreal. But
he's criminally underrated.
Yes. Yeah.
For a lot of teams, like you said before, that don't necessarily get the shine because it's not Toronto centric. Teams out west and teams east of Toronto, they feel that. And Jeff Petrie is one of those examples of a guy that just you almost never hear about, but every night he's doing something that makes you go, holy shit.
Yeah. And considering how he started too in Edmonton and just what happened there, his growth, it's a great story as well that I don't think that's been talked about enough. So Chabot or Hughes?
Oh geez, this season or like for the next 5 years?
Who's the best defenseman on the Canadian team? Like Sportsnet did that for a little bit, and we piggybacked on it, and we came to a consensus. It's down to those two. Who is the best one?
I agree. Yeah.
And Devin and Sean yell at each other every episode.
First you don't have Devin and his dramatic arm throws when you say something that he disagrees with. He's got Chabot. I have Hughes.
I mean, geez, that's oh boy. I mean, that's almost like picking between the Calder winners last year. They're so close. They're right there. Like, I think Hughes brings a little more dynamite, especially on the power play. Like the way he can just whip that puck around and find open space and find open guys and stuff. I really think that's going to be a big difference maker. But I mean, Chabot is, one of the top 4 or 5 defensemen in the world right now. I don't think Quinn's necessarily there yet. He's right there. He's knocking at the doorstep. He's definitely, for me, top 10. But I have Chabot ahead of Hughes. I mean, if I got to take a defenseman for one season, sure. For the next 5 years, I'm taking Quinn Hughes every time. I think the ceiling for Quinn Hughes is going to be unbelievable.